They laugh at you, Rylai, yet you continue to smile. Make them fear you.
Rylai the Crystal Maiden and her sister Lina the Slayer were both born with an affinity for each their element. Lina got a fiery temper and would grow up to be a hot babe, and so her talents with fire fit her character well. While Crystal Maiden, on the other hand, got the opposite. Her powers over ice were not as immediately destructive as Lina's, but nonetheless she was continuously freezing and ruining things around her, such as crops. Rylai did not share her sister's temper, but instead got traits influenced by people avoiding her. Crystal Maiden's personality is, intentional or not, one of the best ones in my opinion, because she is not a cold person. That would be lazy writing. Too obvious. Instead, she suffers from poor communication skills, reclusiveness, and an altruistic need to please everyone around her. All signs of someone who has been neglected socially. Her temperamental and bullying sister, overwhelmed parents, guilt over spoiling crops, and later exile would all contribute to her now lonely existence. When she and Lina were sent to each their part of the world, Lina was sent to a nice family and would later get lots of attention from men. Rylai, on the other hand, lived alone in a glacier with nothing but an old wizard and the walrus bear people of Icewrack. So, during both early childhood and adolescence, she was never able to properly socialize, which further strengthened her already aloof personality. Like I mentioned, both Lina and Rylai were sent off by their parents when they became too powerful to handle. Crystal Maiden ended up in the realm of Icewrack, under the wing of a hermit ice wizard who taught her how to use her natural talents. Tusk is also from the north, and both a comic and the Siltbreaker event suggests that everything north of the barrier is populated by his people. Tusk and Rylai grew up playing with each other as kids, and while they haven't seen each other in a while, they have remained close.
I miss our snowball fight, Seamere.
Her master, the ice wizard we don't know the identity of, would eventually descend into the Blueheart Glacier when he figured Crystal Maiden was ready to study magic in solitude. And since she has become so powerful that nobody matches her skill with ice magic. She has also become Icewrack's warden and has, for example, as we saw in her comic, saved her people from Arath the Winter Wyvern's harassment. She is not part of the Sapphire Conclave, the magic authority in the Dota world, but she does collaborate with them in keeping magic crime in check. And that's what her artifact lore is about.
Warden of Icewrack. It's a fancy title. In theory, it means I'm responsible for maintaining law and order, collaborating with the Sapphire Conclave on magical crimes, and protecting the weak from all manners of nasty things. In practice, I help farmers fix fences, so I decided to go on a little sabbatical. Besides, I couldn't stay in Icewrack. It's cold, it's boring, and I heard my sister was planning on visiting, so I definitely had to get the hell out of there.
Her relationship with Pierpont is a bit unclear, but we know that he is part of the Sapphire Conclave, and that he has high hopes for Rylai. The Sapphire Archons are in charge of keeping magical peace, but don't confuse them with the Quorum. In Weeping Rose, the rules of the outside world don't apply, and they have their own system with the Quorum and Tyler Estate. But everywhere else, the Sapphire Archons rule the arcane. Pierpont is one of the characters that has been hinted about a lot, but we know very little about. Vanessa from Artifact talks about him, and there's a Drewolf artwork that may hint about what he looks like. She seems to be his failed pupil.
Pierpont always warns me about dabbling with things you don't understand. Most of the time he's being a sanctimonious bastard. Unfortunately, sometimes he's right. Well, mostly right. I mean, I've never died permanently. You know, now that I think about it, he's basically always just being a sanctimonious bastard. Pierpont and I don't agree on a lot of things, but he was wise to recognize the dangers of angering the faceless void. I'm not super wild about the Clazorim Treaty. Chronomancy was a lot of fun, but you know what's also fun? Not having your timeline obliterated.
It was Pierpont who helped broker the Clazorim Treaty, ensuring that Faceless Void would not wreak havoc with our time stream. In exchange, the Sapphire Conclave agreed to enforce a strict crackdown on chronomancy. Most hourglasses on this plane were confiscated, but every now and again one turns up, usually in the possession of a wizard too foolish to understand the consequences of his actions.
Here with the Clazorim Treaty, we get the first-hand description of the Sapphire Conclave monitoring magic use. But like I said, Crystal Maiden is not in the Conclave. Pierpont may have his eyes on including her in the future though. From Underlords we learn that Crystal Maiden used to always help people, but nowadays doesn't hesitate to freeze them. But since this comes from Carl, an undead, possibly future underlord who doesn't seem to be particularly a good person, I think it's fair to assume Crystal Maiden only freezes bad guys and protects the innocent. Rylai's Dota 1 lore is actually really disappointing. There's no story whatsoever, just basically a description of her. She's an elegant ice mage trained by a wizard. Her original Dota 1 name was Rylai Crestfall, but this was changed in Dota 2 so they could make her and Lina siblings. Crystal Maiden is one of the oldest Dota 1 and Dota 2 heroes, as well as in both Artifact and Underlords at both games' release. In World of Warcraft, there's an NPC named Rylai Crestfall, which is a homage to the Dota character. Her scepter has even somehow found itself in League of Legends as an item. Crystal Maiden is also very frequently cosplayed at events, and so it's pretty fair to say that she's popular. Rylai is incredibly talkative, and especially to icy heroes like Jakiro, Lich, and Tusk. Her allies are Juggernaut, Sven, Tusk, Phoenix, and Phantom Lancer, which are like the most stereotypical good guy hero types.
I would not kill a maiden, but you force the issue!
Sven, are you still so blue under that armor?
Sorry to do that to you, darling.
Maybe it's because of her big selection of male buddies, but Quap is questioning her maidenhood.
Crystal Maiden. Are you really, I wonder?
Other rivals Crystal Maiden has is Lich, Stern Spirit, Tinker, Jakiro, and Ancient Apparition.
Now you know the true meaning of cold, Crystal Maiden. Nice.
I almost liked half of you.
This ice ain't nice, sister.
Winter Wyvern would later become her ally, as we have seen in her comic.
I'm Meltworm now, but I was once a maiden warrior.
But as you all know, her most prominent relationship is with Lina. As they are siblings, they especially fought a lot in their childhood, but are not afraid to speak their minds on the battlefield either.
I'm sorry, sister. I always was the good one. This time, Lina, it ends in ice.
Sorry, sister, but you needed thawing. You were adopted!
Pangolier is trying to have them make up though, and is working like a middleman between them. But the one biggest discussion people have about Rylai's lore lies in her title and was commented on by Quap. Is she actually a maiden? It's become sort of a joke that she, ironically enough, maybe is one of the more promiscuous heroes. And while I think that discussion is a bit XD, I'm 12, it is interesting that such an extraordinarily attractive girl is celibate. It could be by choice, because of some religious belief, or because she's married to her job as protector of Icewrack. But I don't think so. I think she's actually an incel. Okay, hold up, before you give me that look, hear me out. Most of her life, she's either been neglected or alone. Calling her socially awkward would be the biggest understatement in Dota. Her sister also arguably has much more sex appeal than her, which could get her self-esteem down. Maybe she wants to interact with more than just some old grandpa and walrus furries, but because of past experience, she's afraid to. If you look at many of the incels IRL that blame their celibacy on their skull shapes and height, and don't realize that the mentality is poisoning their personality, it's not that hard to imagine this might have happened to Crystal Maiden too. She's beautiful and means well, but her low self-esteem makes her socially awkward and incapable of forming a relationship with anyone. There's a theory in psychology that people who experience loneliness for a long time actually starts to think drastically different from other people. A regular person will assume good things or neutral things about the stranger's actions. A normal person is aware that most people are good and nice by default, because nobody wants to admit that they're a bad person or evil. You always have an excuse for why what you did is right. And most people know that since I'm a good person, then most likely every other individual must be the same. While their actions may be bad, their intentions are good. But a person who has been lonely for a long time actually changes this outlook. They will see someone's action as bad and evil by default, so an innocent action might look like an attack. If you say hi to someone you recognize and they ignore you, a regular person will probably think, oh, he just didn't hear me, probably deep into his own head. Whereas a lonely person will think he's an asshole who hates you and is ignoring you on purpose. Speaking of incels and other lonely people out there, Holiday season can be very difficult for those who are alone, not just because they don't have anyone to spend it with, but also because people left and right are wishing them Merry Christmas and asking what they will be doing. There's also those social media assholes that post pictures all the time everywhere of how happy and perfect everything is, when we all know that they're miserable in reality. Just remember, the louder someone is about something, the more insecure they likely are about it. Don't let it get you down if you see a huge family gathering with mountains of presents. Instead, let's be grateful for what we do have and stop being so materialistic and superficial. The past couple of years I've gotten more mindful about this, so instead of wishing you all a Merry Christmas with your perfect family, my thoughts go out to those who either are alone, in a dysfunctional, drunk household, or maybe even those who are hosting more than they can handle and are really stressed right now. Christmas is great if you're in a bubble, but the reality for a lot of people is loneliness, fear, and stress. By the way, in case you haven't noticed, I haven't been uploading as frequently the past 3 weeks, and that's because I noticed I had become a bit more neurotic than usual, and I think it's burnout building up. I actually wrote most of the Crystal Maiden script a while ago, but thought it was crap, so I was reluctant to continue. I know it's bomb now, but at the time I just felt like I couldn't produce good enough shit, so I've taken some time off to game, reflect, and I also started going to the gym. From 2020 onwards, I will continue with a goal of 2 videos each week instead of 3, and perhaps cool down the streaming a little bit. I will be back sometime the first week of January. I'm leaving for about 2 weeks starting today and will not be uploading while away. Instead, I will work on my lore website, dotaverse.net. My video about the new Underlord, Joel, will have to wait until next year. There's not much new about him anyways that I haven't already talked about. Hope you spent the holidays the best way for you, and good luck in 2020. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Peace.